I'm going to call upon Mrudul Mody. Mrudul has been an explorer. He's been an explorer for many, many years. And some of his learnings he's been able to bring about in good management skills for outdoor activities. At Pugmarks and at Atom, Mrudul has spent many hours and days in trying to dissect and decipher the government GR. Mrudul, all yours.
Good evening, friends. I have come here today to talk to you about the scheme that has been developed in New Zealand. New Zealand, as you all know, is considered to be the adventure capital of the world. They have got a tremendous variety of adventure activities, and they have been doing adventure activities for a very long time. They've also been known to be highly professional in these activities. So obviously, if they have regulations, then I think it behooves us to have a look at what they are doing, how they are doing it, why they are doing it, who is doing it, and probably when we think in terms of regulating ourselves, then we may learn a lot of things from them so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So that is the idea behind this presentation that I'm going to make today. First thing that we find about the New Zealand regulation thing is that the absolutely first thing they did was to define adventure activities. Now, this is not a generic definition of adventure as such. This is a very particular definition. It is a definition of adventure activity to which the regulations that they are going to come out with are going to apply. They are talking of adventure activities in those terms. So what is an adventure activity? An adventure activity is an activity which is provided for payment, in return for payment. So they are very clear about this. They are talking of commercial adventure activities only. It is land-based or water-based. Now you see that there is no air-based over here. The reason is that they have special separate rules for air-based activities. So these regulations that are coming out are for land-based and water-based activities only. It involves a participant being guided, taught, or assisted to participate in the activity. This means that we are talking about novices as participants who do not know how to undertake these activities, and therefore a person who is guiding that participant, teaching him or assisting him, he is subject to these regulations, and the main purpose of the activity is recreational or educational. These are the people to whom these regulations are going to apply. It is also designed to deliberately expose to a risk, and this risk has to be managed by the proper provider of the activity. Alright? Then these regulations are applicable. Failure of the provider's management systems can lead to serious harm. That is another requirement, and here there are deliberately exposed to dangerous terrain, waters, etc. It's also not applicable to sports clubs. Not only the members of the clubs, but members of other sports clubs who have some sort of an agreement with them, and a member of a club if they want membership. And the last thing, very interesting, is provided to any one person on no more than 12 days in any 12-month period. These people are excluded. Same applies to an association of sports clubs, same clauses are there. And it does not apply to a registered school or an education provider, tertiary education provider, which means college. Neither to the student of the school, neither to the student of another school which has that agreement. And again, the same thing about encouraging enrollment and 12 days in any 12-month period. This is how they define adventure, because they are concerned about whom are these regulations going to be applicable to and whom they are not going to be applicable to. Here we learn something from them, that we must have certain exclusions. Some sensible exclusions must be there. It cannot be that, for example, in our case in India, there is a lot of so-called adventure tourism, which is actually religious tourism. People go for Char Dham Yatra, they go to Hemkund Sahib, they go to other places, even the Ayyappan temple, for example, they go to thick forests and all that. And are we going to include them in these regulations, this GR or any other GR, whether it is brought by the Maharashtra government or whether it's brought by the center? What are we going to do about these people? What about religious tourism? What about people, researchers, who may have to go somewhere, say in a thick forest, and they are trying to find out the number of tigers or number of elephants or things like that. Will this be applicable to them? So this is one thing that this clearly brings out, that New Zealand regulations, the definition that they have adopted clearly brings out, and we also should be doing this, that we should be very clear in our mind about defining adventure activity and finding out where these regulations are going to be applicable, where they are not going to be applicable. As far as the actual regulations are concerned, I've highlighted a lot of things. First, the initiation, how the whole thing got initiated, then what they made a regulatory impact statement, very interesting. They had very clear objectives. Regulatory options were there, alternate options were there, non-regulatory initiatives are there. They consulted a lot of people. Adventure activity regulations finally came out, and then responsibilities. We'll go through all this very quickly. Initiation, how did the whole thing get initiated? It got initiated by the Prime Minister in 2009. The New Zealand Prime Minister at that time, in 2009, initiated this whole procedure. Okay? And the very interesting thing, right from the beginning, the second paragraph, please read it. It's very interesting. There should not be an expectation that all accidents in the sector can be eliminated. Rather, it should be expected that all practicable efforts are made to minimize the risk of accidents. They are very, very clear in their mind that whatever regulations you bring, you are not going to be able to eliminate accidents. Accidents will be there, but the purpose is to minimize accidents. Okay. Before they went into making the regulations, the Department of Labor, with a lot of other experts, were asked to make an impact statement, regulatory impact statement. Now, how did they go about doing it? First of all, so many speakers have told us today that we have no statistics about the number of adventure activities that are being conducted, the number of organizations which do it, the number of fatalities, the number of serious accidents. They took the trouble to find out. 31 reported fatalities and 297 reported serious harm injuries during this almost 5-year period. Okay. Now, this is not a big number. 31 fatalities, if you compare it to fatalities because of maybe car accidents or so many other things, this is nothing. But still, they brought this regulation. I'll come to that later. There's another point. Okay. They also found that current legislation places no obligations on adventure tourism businesses to comply with any safety audits or anything of that sort. That means there are no obligations. There is no comprehensive information exists about adventure tourism operators and their activities, which is the case over here also. What were the objectives? Why did they want to do it? First, to reduce accidents and fatalities in the sector. Secondly, to ensure that New Zealand continues to be perceived as a quality destination for international visitors. And third is provide ongoing assurance that appropriate safety management provisions are being offered. See, the main thing is that they knew that accidents cannot be avoided, but they wanted to reduce that. And they wanted to ensure the world that New Zealand is a quality destination for adventure activities. I think we also need to be clear about why we want to come out with these regulations. I think something like this would be really very good. Okay, what were the regulatory options that they considered? This regulatory committee, they considered various options. Some were regulatory options. One was that there should be a notification only. Second was that there should be a licensing scheme. And the third was a registration scheme. They thought that a full licensing scheme would be less cost effective, and the notification only scheme would not address all the problems that they had been identified. And there was that no change option also, which I think Chantal mentioned just now. That was completely rejected. So there was no question of there being no change. There had to be some change. Other alternate options were considered. One is to educate customers to look for a safety mark from an accredited safety auditing scheme, requiring operators to have a safety audit, link ACC payments. ACC is accident compensation something. Those payments should be linked to audited safety management plans, and expanding rules-based approach. Colonel Chada talked about maritime and other things. In fact, this is where it has come from, New Zealand. Expanding the rules-based approach taken under the Maritime Transport Act and the Civil Aviation Act for possible application to other adventure-based activities. This also they considered. And increasing the level of inspection under the HSE Act. HSE Act is Health and Safety in Employment Act, 1992. So these were the other options that they considered. Non-regulatory initiatives was to establish an industry-led entity, have safety auditing schemes, register of government-accredited adventure tourism, and generic practice guide. When we talk of generic practice guide, we are talking of basically SOPs for the sector. Other non-regulatory initiatives were providing other guidance so that to better inform operators, collecting better and more consistent information, investing whether instructors and guides should have certain qualifications, and investigating if New Zealand should be represented on the International Organization for Standardizations, TC228 Working Group for Adventure Tourism. So these were the various other initiatives non-regulatory initiatives that they considered. Amongst whom was a consultation carried out. First, Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Tourism, Civil Aviation Authority, Maritime New Zealand, ACC, Department of Conservation. These are all the government side. Two leading sector organizations, that means industry organizations. One is the TIA, that is Tourism Industry Association of New Zealand, and the second was Outdoors New Zealand. These two organizations are non-government organizations. They are organizations belonging to the industry. It is industry representatives who are there on these organizations. In addition to that, representatives of councils for local government in New Zealand and a 69-member external reference group consisting of relevant people and organizations from the sector. Public consultation also occurred. So all these people were consulted on a regular basis. And then only were the regulations, they came out with the regulations. Once this safety review came out, there were some reflections which came out in the papers and in the media, and the stakeholders came out with some of the reflections. The reflections were that every operator wants to avoid incidents and accidents. This, I think, is true for Indian operators also. The primary responsibility of safety and quality lies with the operator. I think that's perfectly fine. A national support structure should be comprehensive and weighed towards providing support, guidance, and tools. That means at the national level, some speakers have spoken about training institutes, some speakers have spoken about first aid training, so many other things, soft skills, etc., etc., etc. We have these mountaineering institutes. Colonel Chada said that he's willing to add courses to that. Yeah, this is the sort of thing that is required. Maybe also what is required is evacuation and evacuation and all those other things, you know. So that I don't think it can be done at a state level. It cannot be done by private people. It has to be done by the government. So all this support should be there. It should be a national support structure. These are some of the reflections. Other reflections are operators with well-embedded safety systems should not face significant additional requirements and costs. I mean, this again, you know, there are some operators over here who are doing a fairly good job. They're very aware of safety issues. They take care. They educate the participants, including children and their parents. So these people should not have to face many more costs and many more regulations and, you know, all sorts of license permit sort of a thing should not be there. Innovation should still be enabled, and the review presented an opportunity to be better than before. So these are the reflections that came out from the public. Now we come to the actual regulations, and we are talking only of the key recommendations. Mind you, this safety review document is a 94-page document. I've just taken the important parts and put over here, because basically my purpose is to give an idea over here to all those present about what New Zealand has done and what we can learn from it. Okay, that's the only idea. Okay, now what are the key recommendations? The first is, it would be an offense to carry out adventure activities without a current safety audit certificate. Secondly, that an industry-led entity should strengthen the safety management framework for the adventure tourism and outdoor commercial sector. Third is a generic practice guide should be developed. Fourth, additional guidance should be developed to better inform operators about the current responsibilities, particularly activity-specific guidance. Activity-specific guidance means SOPs and so many other things. That the method be developed to ensure that better and more consistent information on the adventure tourism and outdoor social commercial sectors is collected. And investigation needs to be carried out into what the appropriate levels and measures of competency are for adventure sector instructors and guides. This is exactly what Shantanu was talking about, competence. So they wanted to investigate and see what are the appropriate levels. There can be novices, there can be, what all did you say, Shantanu, novices? Apprentice, competent and master. So you can have levels of competency. Okay, these are the regulations. Safety audits are a key component of any safety system. The health and safety in employment regulations require those commercial adventure operators to undergo a safety audit and become registered. What does this second point mean? This means that they are very clear under which act, that is under the HSE Act 1992, under which act are these regulations being formed? Because it is going to be an offense if you do not have a current safety, a valid safety audit. But then you're going to take action under which act? So this makes it very clear that it will be under the HSE Act 1992. In our GR, there is no clarity about which act the GR falls under. All providers of adventure activities must be registered by November 2014. Remember, the Prime Minister came out with a demand for a safety review and regulations in 2009. And Shantanu, what you were saying, 5 years, that is New Zealand. 5 years and a little more. Because it was in September 2009 that the Prime Minister came out with that thing, and they have given time till November 2014. All providers of adventure activities must be registered by November 2014. Registration occurs once you have had a safety audit conducted by a WorkSafe NZ recognized audit provider. And as of July 2014, there are 4 recognized audit providers. WorkSafe NZ, all this is very interesting. They have developed a guidance document, a fact sheet to highlight key aspects of what is an adventure activity, and a decision-making tree to help you find out whether these regulations are going to be applicable to you or not. WorkSafe NZ have developed an audit standard which will be used for the purposes of the adventure activities regulations. The standard sets out the requirements for safety management systems. So they are not only going to conduct audits, they are going to approve auditors, they have an audit standard, everything is very clear, okay? WorkSafe NZ has several safety advisors available to review our safety management plan. See, they also have safety advisors. So if I have an organization and I am having difficulty in understanding how I'm going to be audited and what I need to do to pass the audit, then there are safety advisors. Their support is free and available one-to-one to any operator. WorkSafe will pay $1,000 or in some cases $1,500 to the cost of an audit. So it's not that I have to pay something from my own pocket. You know, WorkSafe is going to provide money. There is no such provision over here in our GR. They are very clear about the responsibilities. Who's going to be responsible for what? Department of Labour have responsibility for the implementation of Recommend 1. The Tourism Industry Association, TIA, has been contracted to implement Recommendations 3 and 4, while Outdoors New Zealand has been contracted to implement Recommendations 5 and 6. And each association has a contractual responsibility to support the other associations. Okay? So they are very clear about who is responsible for what. There is no lack of clarity about any of this at all. Finally, the timeline, exactly how things happened. As I told you, September 2009 was when the Prime Minister demanded that there should be some regulation. June 2010, the Department of Labour report on review of risk and safety and adventure and outdoors commercial sectors came out. The DOL report was accepted in December 2010. November 2011, adventure activity regulations came into force, and November 2014 is the final date for registration. So this is more than 5 years they gave. And I think we, in our country, also need that much time. Basically, it's probably my opinion, I hope I'm wrong, but there are many adventure operators who are not really very much educated. I don't think that they would find it very easy to undergo audits and to maintain all these various records and stuff like that, you know, which we are talking about. We have to teach them. We have to give time. Otherwise, no GR, no nothing is going to work. It's going to be a failure. That's all I wanted to tell you. Thank you very much.